When I opened that plain brown envelope on my 45th birthday, I had no idea it would lead me away from everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and the people I'd spent half my life trusting. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter that morning. No return address, just my name written in careful cursive. I remember the weight of it in my hands. Heavy, official, the kind of thing that makes your stomach drop before you even know why. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to when things were still normal, or what I thought was normal. My name is Claire, and for 17 years, I'd been married to David. We met in college, the kind of meet-cute people write romance novels about. Spilled coffee in the library, his apologetic smile, my ruined textbook. He paid for a new one, insisted on buying me dinner to make up for it, and 3 years later, we were standing at an altar promising forever. 17 years of forever. That's what I thought we had. We lived in a modest 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. David worked as a financial advisor downtown, and I ran a small home bakery that kept me busy but allowed me the freedom I craved. We didn't have children, something that had caused its share of quiet disappointments over the years, but we'd made peace with it. Or so I believed. My best friend Natalie had been in my life even longer than David. 23 years of friendship. We met in high school, bonded over terrible cafeteria food and dreams bigger than our small town could hold. She was the maid of honor at my wedding. I was there when her father passed. We were sisters in every way except blood. Natalie was a real estate agent, successful and driven, with a laugh that could fill a room. She was single, fiercely independent, and always said she didn't need a man to complete her life. I admired that about her. She'd come over every Thursday evening for what we called our wine and wine sessions, sitting on my back porch, sharing the week's frustrations and victories over cheap Merlot and whatever I'd baked that day. David liked her well enough. They got along the way spouses and best friends should. Cordial, friendly, no tension. Sometimes the three of us would go out together, to dinner or a movie. It felt balanced, complete. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was to the small changes. It started about 8 months before that envelope arrived. Little things. David's phone, which used to sit face up on the coffee table, suddenly stayed face down. He started working late more often, coming home with the faint smell of perfume I didn't recognize but assumed came from clients. He'd grown distant in bed, turning away from me with excuses about being tired, stressed, overworked. I told myself it was normal. Marriages have seasons. Sometimes you're close, sometimes you drift. I figured we'd cycle back. Natalie changed too, though I didn't want to see it at the time. Our Thursday nights became less frequent. She'd cancel last minute, work emergencies, client demands, exhaustion. When we did meet, she seemed distracted, checking her phone more than usual, her laugh a little too bright, a little too forced. "Everything okay?" I'd ask. "Of course," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "Just busy season, you know how it is." I believed her because I wanted to. Because questioning her would mean questioning everything. The real shift happened 3 months before my birthday. David told me his firm was sending him to a conference in Denver. 4 days, he'd be back Sunday night. I packed his suitcase, kissed him goodbye at the door, watched him drive away in his silver sedan. That same week, Natalie mentioned she had a work retreat. "Real estate convention," she said. "Also in Denver." What a coincidence, I thought. Maybe they'd run into each other. They didn't run into each other. They planned it. But I didn't know that yet. I spent those 4 days alone, baking more than I needed to, watching shows David never liked, enjoying the quiet solitude. When he came back, he seemed refreshed, lighter. He even brought me a small gift, a silver bracelet with a turquoise stone. "Saw it in a shop and thought of you," he said, fastening it around my wrist. I wore it every day after that. It felt like a gesture of love, a sign that maybe we were coming back to each other. Natalie returned from Denver glowing. New haircut, new confidence. She talked about leads she'd generated, connections she'd made, how the trip had been exactly what she needed. "You seem really happy," I told her over coffee the following week. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I am. Things are finally coming together." I should have asked what she meant. I should have pressed. But I was too grateful to have my best friend back, too relieved that David seemed present again, too comfortable in the life I thought we'd built. Then came my birthday. October 30th, a Thursday. David kissed my forehead that morning before leaving for work. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. I've got something special planned for tonight," Natalie texted around noon. "Happy birthday, beautiful. Can't make it tonight. Emergency showing. But I'll make it up to you this weekend. Love you." I spent the afternoon baking myself a small chocolate cake, the kind David loved. I set the table for two, lit candles, put on the dress I knew made him smile. And then I saw the envelope. It was tucked between the mail, bills, catalogs, a credit card offer. But this one stood out, thick, expensive paper. My name in that careful cursive. I opened it standing at the counter, the smell of chocolate still warm in the air. Inside was a cashier's check for $70,000 and a letter that would destroy everything. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter. The check slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the floor, but I couldn't move to pick it up. My eyes were locked on the words written in the same careful cursive as my name on the envelope. "Dear Claire, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you in person. Coward that I am. But some truths are easier written than spoken. My name is Margaret Holloway. You don't know me, but I knew your mother, Sarah, before she passed. We were roommates in college, best friends for over 40 years. She talked about you constantly, showed me pictures, told me stories. I felt like I knew you, even though we never met. Sarah made me promise something before the cancer took her. She made me promise to watch over you from a distance, to make sure you were okay. I kept that promise. I've kept it for 7 years now. I'm dying now too, Claire. Pancreatic cancer. The doctors give me weeks, maybe days. I have no children, no family left. My estate is substantial, and I've spent the last months deciding what to do with it. Your mother would want you to have this. She would want you to have the freedom she never had, the choices she couldn't make. So I'm giving you $70,000. It's not everything I have, but it's enough to change things if you need to change them. Use it wisely. Use it for yourself. And Claire, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong in your life, it probably is. Your mother always said you had good instincts but a too forgiving heart. Be well. Be strong. Margaret, I read it 3 times before the words fully penetrated. A stranger, a woman who knew my mother, had left me $70,000. Just like that. Out of nowhere. On my birthday. It felt surreal. Impossible. Like one of those emails promising inheritance from a distant relative you've never heard of. But the check on the floor was real. I picked it up, studied it. Official, legitimate, drawn from a law firm in Boston. My mother. I hadn't thought about her in months, not in any deep way. She'd died 7 years ago, peacefully in her sleep, after a year-long battle with breast cancer. I'd grieved, moved forward, built my life with David. She'd liked David, approved of him, thought he was stable and kind. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Margaret's words echoed in my head. Something had felt wrong. For months now. But I'd ignored it, explained it away, convinced myself I was being paranoid or needy or unreasonable. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope with the check. My heart was racing. $70,000? That kind of money meant options, security, freedom. But freedom from what? I pushed the thought away and focused on dinner. David would be home soon. We'd celebrate, and I'd tell him about the unexpected gift. We'd figure out together what to do with it. Maybe take a vacation. Maybe renovate the kitchen. Maybe invest it. He arrived at 7:30, later than I expected. His tie was loosened, his collar unbuttoned. He looked tired. "Sorry, birthday girl," he said, kissing my cheek. "Client emergency. You know how it is." I did know. Or I thought I did. We ate the dinner I'd prepared. Roasted chicken, his favorite potatoes, a salad. The chocolate cake waited on the counter. He seemed distracted, checking his phone between bites. "David," I said softly, "can you put that away? Just for tonight?" He looked up, almost surprised to see me sitting across from him. "Right, sorry. Work stuff." It's always work stuff lately. The words came out sharper than I intended. He set his phone down, face down next to his plate. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. I miss you. It feels like you're always somewhere else, even when you're here." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Claire, I'm trying to build our future. The firm's been talking about making me partner. That means long hours, means proving myself. I thought you understood that." I did understand. But understanding doesn't fill the empty space in a bed at night. It doesn't explain the perfume or the distance or the way he flinches when I reach for his hand. "I do understand," I said quietly. "I just wish you'd make time for us too. I'm here now, aren't I?" He wasn't, not really. But I nodded and changed the subject. Something happened today. Something strange and wonderful. I told him about the envelope, the letter, the check. As I spoke, I watched his face. Surprise flickered there, then something else. Something I couldn't quite read. $70,000? He repeated. "From someone you've never met?" "She knew my mother. Still, that's unusual. Are you sure it's legitimate?" "It's from a law firm. I can call them tomorrow to verify, but it looks real." He picked up the check, studied it the way I had. "We should put this in savings. Or invest it. I can talk to some people at the firm, get you set up with a solid portfolio." "Maybe," I said. "I was thinking we could use some of it for a trip. Or, Claire, this is serious money. We can't just blow it on a vacation." "I wasn't suggesting we blow it. I just thought—" "Let me handle it," he said, cutting me off. His tone was firm, almost paternal. "This is what I do for a living. Trust me. Trust. That word again." I nodded slowly, taking the check back from him and slipping it into my purse. "I'll think about it." Something passed over his face. Annoyance? Frustration? It vanished quickly, replaced by a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Of course. It's your money. Your decision." But the way he said it made it clear he expected me to decide his way. We ate the chocolate cake in near silence. He checked his phone twice more. When I asked about the special evening he'd mentioned that morning, he looked blank. "Rain check?" he said. "I'm exhausted." He went to bed early. I stayed downstairs, holding Margaret's letter, reading it again in the dim light of the kitchen. "Trust your instincts." My instincts were screaming now. I couldn't sleep that night. David lay beside me, his breathing deep and even, while I stared at the ceiling counting the hours until morning. The check sat in my purse downstairs, and Margaret's words played on repeat in my mind. If something feels wrong, it probably is. At 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep. I slipped out of bed carefully, pulled on my robe, and went downstairs. The house felt different in the darkness, familiar but somehow foreign, like I was seeing it through new eyes. I made chamomile tea and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Proof? Confirmation? Maybe just reassurance that I was being paranoid. I started with Margaret Holloway. A simple search brought up her obituary. She'd passed away 2 weeks ago. The notice was brief, survived by no immediate family, donations to the American Cancer Society in lieu of flowers. There was a photo, an elegant woman in her 70s with kind eyes and my mother's same warm smile. She was real. The money was real. I closed that tab and opened Facebook, something I rarely did anymore. David's profile appeared first in my search history. His privacy settings were tight, most of his posts visible only to friends, but his profile picture had changed recently. I hadn't noticed. It showed him at what looked like a restaurant, a glass of wine in hand, smiling at whoever was taking the photo. The picture was tagged. I clicked on the tag. My stomach dropped. Natalie. The photo was from 3 weeks ago. A Thursday night. One of the nights she'd canceled on me, claiming exhaustion. I scrolled further. More photos. David and Natalie at a baseball game. At a coffee shop. At what looked like the Denver conference. In that last photo, they stood close together in front of a hotel, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. The photos were public, visible to anyone. They hadn't even tried to hide. My hands trembled as I clicked through to Natalie's profile. Her recent posts were carefully curated. Property listings, motivational quotes, sunset photos. Nothing personal, nothing that would raise suspicion. But in her tagged photos, there he was. Again and again. My husband and my best friend, living some parallel life I knew nothing about. I felt sick. The tea turned bitter in my mouth. There had to be an explanation. A reasonable explanation. They were friends. Friends took photos together. Maybe they'd run into each other in Denver and grabbed coffee. Maybe the baseball game was a group thing I'd forgotten about, but I hadn't forgotten. I would have remembered. I checked the dates on the photos. They went back months. 6 months. 8 months. Some from before Denver. From times when David said he was working late, or Natalie claimed to be showing properties. The evidence was right there, public and undeniable. And I'd never thought to look. I closed the laptop before I could see more. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped bands around my ribs and was pulling them tighter with each breath. This couldn't be happening. Not David, not Natalie, not the two people I trusted most in the world, but Margaret's voice whispered again. Trust your instincts. I sat there until dawn broke, watching the sky lighten through the kitchen window. When David came downstairs at 6:30, freshly showered and dressed for work, I was still at the table. You're up early, he said, moving past me to the coffee maker. Couldn't sleep. Everything okay? I wanted to confront him. Wanted to throw my phone in his face and demand the truth. But something held me back. If I was wrong, if there was an innocent explanation, I'd look foolish, paranoid, controlling. And if I was right, I needed to be smart about this. Fine, I said. Just thinking about Margaret's letter. About my mom. He nodded, pouring coffee into his travel mug. Listen about that money. I really think we should... I'm going to keep it in my personal account for now, I interrupted. Just until I decide what to do with it. His jaw tightened. Claire, that's not smart financially. Letting it sit there. It's my decision, David. You said so yourself. The air between us went cold. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Anger? Fear? Fine, he said finally. Do what you want. He left without kissing me goodbye. I waited until I heard his car pull out of the driveway before I moved. Then I went upstairs to our bedroom and did something I'd never done in 17 years of marriage. I went through his things. His nightstand drawer held the usual. Charging cables, reading glasses, a book he'd been meaning to finish for months. Nothing suspicious. His dresser was the same. Socks, underwear, t-shirts folded neatly the way he liked them. But in the back of his closet, behind the winter coats we hadn't touched since March, I found a shoebox. Inside were receipts. Dozens of them. Dinner at expensive restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel rooms. Jewelry from a boutique downtown, a necklace I'd never seen. Flowers from a florist we'd never used. And cards. Birthday cards, anniversary cards, thank you cards. All in Natalie's handwriting. To my favorite person. You make everything better. Thank you for last night. I can't stop thinking about you. Happy 6 months. Here's to forever, 6 months. They'd been together for 6 months, maybe longer. I sat on the closet floor holding those cards, reading them over and over until the words blurred. My best friend. My husband. 6 months of lies and secret dinners and stolen moments while I baked cakes and waited for Thursday nights that never came. The betrayal felt physical, like someone had reached into my chest and torn something vital out. But underneath the pain, something else was growing. Something cold and clear and sharp. Margaret had given me $70,000 and told me to trust my instincts. My instincts were telling me to be smart, to be strategic, to not let them know I knew. Not yet. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Every receipt, every card, the shoebox positioned in the same spot behind the winter coats. My hands were steady now. The initial shock had burned away, leaving behind something harder, clearer. I went downstairs and called the law firm in Boston. A paralegal confirmed what I already knew. The inheritance was legitimate, already processed, the check ready to deposit. I thanked her and hung up. Then I drove to a bank across town, one David and I didn't use, and opened a new account in only my name. I deposited the $70,000 and requested a debit card. The banker smiled and congratulated me on the inheritance. Starting fresh, I said. She had no idea how true that was. Over the next 2 weeks, I played the role of the oblivious wife perfectly. I smiled when David came home late. I texted Natalie about rescheduling our Thursday nights. I baked bread and cookies, kept the house clean, acted like everything was normal, but behind the scenes, I was preparing. I contacted a divorce attorney, a woman named Patricia Chen who came highly recommended. I met her during David's work hours, in her downtown office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Take me through everything," she said, pen poised over a legal pad. I told her about the photos, the receipts, and the cards. I told her about our joint accounts, the house we owned together, David's retirement fund from the firm. I told her about 17 years of marriage and how I'd kept my bakery small and manageable because he'd wanted me home, available, waiting. Patricia listened without interrupting, her expression neutral and professional. "Do you have proof of the affair?" she asked when I finished. I showed her photos I'd screenshotted from Facebook, pictures of the receipts I'd taken with my phone before putting them back. She studied them carefully. "This is good, very good. In this state, adultery affects asset division. You're entitled to more than half, especially given the circumstances." "I don't want revenge," I said quietly. "I just want what's fair. And I want out." "Fair is what will get you," Patricia said. "But we need to be strategic. Don't let him know you're planning this. Keep everything normal. Meanwhile, I'll start preparing the paperwork." I left her office feeling lighter than I had in weeks, like I was finally doing something instead of just drowning in pain. That evening, Natalie texted me. "Hey, I know I've been MIA. Can we do Thursday this week? I miss you." I stared at the message for a long time. The audacity of it. The sheer nerve to pretend everything was fine while she was sleeping with my husband. I typed back, "Yes. I've missed you too. My place at 7, perfect. I'll bring the wine." Of course she would. She always did. Thursday came. I spent the afternoon baking. Chocolate chip cookies, Natalie's favorite. I set out wine glasses, lit candles on the back porch, created the perfect scene of our old friendship. She arrived at 7 on the dot, bottle of Merlot in hand, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Cream-colored, expensive-looking. She hugged me at the door and I caught the scent of perfume. The same perfume I'd smelled on David's shirts. "You look beautiful," I said, pulling back to study her. She beamed. "Thanks. I've been taking better care of myself lately. You know, self-care and all that." We settled on the porch with our wine and cookies. The October evening was cool but not cold, the sky streaked with pink and orange from the setting sun. "So," she said, taking a sip of wine, "what's new with you? You sounded a little down in your texts. Did I? I kept my voice light. I don't think I meant to. Things are actually interesting. Oh? Tell me everything, so I did. I told her about Margaret's letter, about the inheritance, about the $70,000. I watched her face as I spoke, cataloging every micro-expression. Surprise, then calculation, then something that looked almost like concern. That's amazing, Claire. What are you going to do with it? I'm not sure yet. David thinks I should invest it, but I'm considering other options. Like what? Maybe starting over. Doing something just for me. She shifted in her chair. Starting over? What do you mean? I met her eyes directly. Have you ever felt like your life wasn't really yours? Like you were living someone else's story? Sometimes, she said slowly. Why? Are you and David okay? The concern in her voice was almost convincing. Almost. We're fine, I lied. Just restless, I guess. Feeling like I want more. More of what? More honesty. More authenticity. More people around me who actually value me. Something flickered across her face. Guilt? Fear? It was gone too quickly to name. Claire, you know I value you, right? You're my best friend. You always have been. Have I been? I asked softly. What kind of question is that? An honest one. She laughed, but it sounded nervous. Of course you have. We've been friends for over 20 years. That doesn't just disappear. No, I agreed. It doesn't just disappear. It takes work to destroy something that strong. The silence that followed was heavy. She took a long drink of wine. Is everything okay? She asked. You're being kind of cryptic, am I? I smiled. Sorry, maybe I'm just tired. David's been working such long hours lately. I barely see him. Yeah, work can be demanding. What about you? Still busy with showings? Always. Real estate never sleeps. Must be exhausting. All those late nights, weekend appointments, out-of-town conferences. Her hand tightened around her wine glass. It is, but it's worth it. I'm sure it is. I let the conversation drift to safer topics after that. Neighborhood gossip, a new bakery opening downtown, a show she was watching. But I'd seen what I needed to see. The guilt was there, buried under layers of performance and false friendship. She left around 9:30, hugging me at the door again. Same time next week? She asked. Definitely, I said. I wouldn't miss it. I watched her drive away, then went inside and locked the door. I poured the rest of the wine down the sink and threw the glasses in the dishwasher. Next week, she'd said. But there wouldn't be a next week. Not the way she imagined. Because tomorrow, Patricia was filing the divorce papers. Friday morning, I woke before David's alarm. I'd barely slept, but I felt strangely energized, like I'd been carrying a weight for months and was finally about to set it down. David stirred beside me, reaching for his phone on the nightstand. I watched him check his messages, saw the small smile that crossed his face before he remembered I was there and quickly locked the screen. Morning, I said. He startled slightly. Morning. You're up early again. Lots on my mind. He swung his legs out of bed, stretching. Listen, I've got a dinner meeting tonight. Probably won't be home until late. Another one? It's the Johnson account. Big opportunity for the firm. Of course, I said. Do what you need to do. He paused, studying me. You're being very understanding lately. Am I not usually understanding? No, you are. It's just, I don't know. You seem different. Maybe I'm growing, I said, meeting his eyes. People change. He nodded slowly, then headed to the shower. While the water ran, I checked his phone. I'd figured out his passcode weeks ago, his mother's birthday, predictable as everything else about him. The messages were there. Dozens of them. Natalie's name appearing over and over in his text history. Can't wait for tonight. I'll wear that dress you like. Tell her you have a meeting. We can finally have a whole evening together. I love you. I know we have to be patient, but I love you tonight. They were meeting tonight while he told me it was a business dinner. I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to Patricia, then deleted the sent email from his phone. He'd never know. When he emerged from the shower, I was already dressed, making coffee like it was any other morning. "I'm meeting some friends today," I told him. "Might be out when you get home." "That's good," he said, seeming relieved. "You should get out more. See people." The irony wasn't lost on me. He left at 8. I waited exactly 10 minutes, then called Patricia. "The papers are ready," she said. "We can serve him today if you're certain." "I'm certain." "At home or at work?" I thought about it. Serving him at the firm would be humiliating, public, and would damage his reputation. Part of me wanted that. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the humiliation I'd felt finding those receipts, but I was better than that. "At home," I said. "This evening. I'll make sure I'm out." "Done. And Claire, you're doing the right thing." I wasn't sure there was a right thing anymore, but it was the necessary thing. I spent the day driving around the city, thinking. I stopped at a cafe I'd never been to and ordered something complicated off the menu. I walked through a bookstore and bought 3 novels I'd never have time to read. I sat in a park and watched children play while their mothers chatted on benches nearby. I was saying goodbye to the life I'd known. The woman who baked on Thursdays and waited for a husband who was never really there. The woman who trusted too easily and loved too completely. That woman was gone. I was someone new now, someone harder, someone who understood that kindness without boundaries was just another word for foolish. At 6 o'clock, I drove to a hotel across town and checked in. A clean room with white sheets and silence. I ordered room service, pasta I didn't taste, and waited for Patricia's call. It came at 7:15. "He's been served," she said. The process server said he was shocked. Asked if it was a joke. What did the server say? That it was very real and he had 20 days to respond. And? "He tried calling you immediately. Multiple times." I looked at my phone. 15 missed calls. 20 texts, each one more frantic than the last. "Claire, what is this? This is insane." "Call me. Where are you?" "We need to talk. This is a mistake. Please. I love you. Don't do this." I turned my phone off and set it on the nightstand. "Good," I told Patricia. "Let him wonder." I slept better that night than I had in months. No one beside me, no questions, no pretending. Just silence and clean sheets and the knowledge that I'd finally stopped being a victim. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel and drove home. David's car was in the driveway. I'd expected that. He was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in, still in yesterday's clothes, looking like he hadn't slept. The divorce papers sat in front of him, wrinkled like he'd read them 100 times. "Claire," he said, standing up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "Thank God. Where were you?" "I've been calling, I know." "This," he gestured at the papers. "This is crazy. We can work through whatever's wrong. We can go to counseling." "I don't want counseling, David. But we're married. 17 years. You can't just—" "I can," I said calmly. "And I am." He stared at me like I was a stranger. "Maybe I was. Why?" He whispered. "What did I do?" I almost laughed. The audacity of that question. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of screenshots. I handed it to him without a word. I watched the color drain from his face as he scrolled through the evidence. The photos, the text messages, the receipts. Everything laid out in undeniable clarity. "Claire, I can explain." "Don't. It's not what it looks like." "David." My voice was sharp enough to cut. "Don't insult me by lying now. You've lied enough." He sank back into the chair, the phone clutched in his hand. "How long have you known? Does it matter?" "I never meant for this to happen. It developed over time. We were working together on some property investments, and she understood the pressure I was under and—" "Stop," I said. "I don't need the story. I don't need the justification. I just need you to sign the papers and move out. Move out! This is my house too. Our house, I corrected, which will be divided fairly in the divorce. But until then, you're leaving. Today. You can't force me to. I can't. But I can make staying here very uncomfortable. Your choice. He looked at me with something between anger and desperation. What about Natalie? What about her? Does she know you know? Not yet, I said. But she will. David left that afternoon. I watched him pack his clothes into suitcases, moving through our bedroom like a ghost. He kept trying to talk, to explain, to negotiate, but I had nothing left to say to him. Where will you go? I asked as he carried the last bag to his car. He hesitated. I'll figure it out. We both knew where he was going. To her. To Natalie's pristine condo downtown with the view of the city skyline. The place I'd helped her decorate 3 years ago. Hanging curtains and arranging furniture while she ordered pizza and told me how lucky she was to have a friend like me. Tell her I said hello, I said. He flinched. Claire, please. I know I hurt you, but Natalie, she's been your friend for... Don't say her name in this house again. He nodded and got in his car. I stood in the doorway and watched him drive away, the same way I'd watched him leave for work 1,000 mornings before. But this time he wasn't coming back. The house felt enormous without him. Every room echoed. I walked through each one, touching furniture, looking at photos on the walls. Our wedding, vacations, birthdays, all those frozen moments of a life that had been half fiction. I took the photos down one by one and put them in a box in the basement. Then I sat on the couch in the empty living room and cried. Not for him, not really. For the version of myself who'd believed in forever. For the innocence I'd never get back. When the tears stopped, I called Patricia. He's gone, I said. What's next? Now we wait for his response to the petition. He has 20 days. In the meantime, document everything. Finances, assets, any communication from him. And Claire? Yes? Be prepared for retaliation. People don't like being caught. He and Natalie might try to control the narrative, paint you as unreasonable or vindictive. Let them try. But Patricia was right to warn me. By Monday morning, my phone was flooding with messages. Mutual friends, people from the neighborhood, even some distant relatives. All asking if I was okay, if the rumors were true, expressing shock and concern in messages that felt more like fishing expeditions than genuine care. David had gotten to them first. I could read between the lines of their carefully worded texts. He'd told some version of the story where he was the victim, the husband whose wife had suddenly and inexplicably demanded a divorce, who'd been blindsided, who didn't understand what went wrong. None of them mentioned Natalie. He was protecting her still. I responded to no one. Instead, I posted something on social media, a platform I rarely used but knew everyone would see. After 17 years of marriage, I've made the difficult decision to divorce my husband. I ask for privacy during this time as I navigate the next chapter of my life. I'm grateful for the support of those who truly know me and the truth. Simple, dignified. Just enough to make people wonder what the truth meant. Within an hour, my phone exploded again. But this time the messages were different. People asking what happened, offering support, some even apologizing for reaching out with judgment before knowing the full story. I ignored those too. I wasn't interested in public validation or sympathy. I just wanted to close the door on speculation. On Tuesday, Natalie finally called. I'd been expecting it. Knew it was coming. Still, seeing her name on my screen made my stomach turn. I answered on the 4th ring. Claire. Her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk, do we? David told me about the divorce. I'm so sorry. I had no idea things were that bad between you two. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, I almost admired it. Didn't you? Silence, then. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know Natalie. I've known for weeks. I heard her breath catch. Known what? Everything. The affair, Denver, the hotel receipts, the text messages, all of it. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, Claire, please. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You slept with my husband. For months. While pretending to be my best friend. It wasn't like that. It just happened. We didn't plan it. You're lying. Even now you're lying. I saw the cards, Natalie. Happy 6 months. You were celebrating anniversaries while canceling our Thursday nights. She was crying now. I could hear the tears in her voice. I never wanted to hurt you, I swear. I tried to stay away, but I fell in love with him, and he was so unhappy and— Stop. My voice cut through her sobs. Don't you dare blame your betrayal on his unhappiness. You made a choice. Every text, every lie, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended to be my friend, those were choices. I know. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Claire. If I could take it back, but you can't. And even if you could, would you? Would you really? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I want you to know something, I said quietly. You didn't just take my husband. You took 23 years of friendship. Every memory we shared, every moment of trust. It's all tainted now. When I think about my wedding, I'll remember you standing beside me while planning to betray me someday. When I think about my mother's funeral, I'll remember you comforting me while secretly being someone who could do this. Claire, please. I don't hate you, Natalie. I pity you, because you're going to spend the rest of your life knowing what kind of person you are, the kind who destroys the people who love them for someone who was willing to cheat on his wife. And someday when he does the same thing to you, and he will, you'll understand exactly how I feel right now. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. I set the phone down and pressed my palms against the cool kitchen counter, breathing slowly until the trembling stopped. The hardest conversation was over. But the real test was still coming, because while David and Natalie were dealing with guilt and shame, I was building something new. Margaret's $70,000 sat in my private account, waiting. Not for revenge. Not for pain, for freedom. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. David, perhaps out of guilt or maybe just exhaustion, didn't fight. Patricia had structured everything clearly. The house would be sold and the proceeds split, though I'd receive a larger portion given the adultery. His retirement accounts would be divided. My bakery, since it was established before the marriage and solely in my name, remained mine. But it was Margaret's $70,000 that changed everything. With that money, I wasn't desperate. I wasn't scrambling to figure out how I'd survive. I had options, and options meant power. I started planning during those quiet November evenings alone in the house. I'd always kept my bakery small, working from home, taking custom orders, staying comfortable, safe. David had encouraged that, said he liked me being home, available, not stretched too thin. Now I understood he'd wanted me dependent, but I wasn't anymore. I reached out to a commercial real estate agent, not Natalie, obviously, and started looking at retail spaces. Small storefronts in up-and-coming neighborhoods where rent was reasonable but foot traffic was growing. I found it 3 weeks after David moved out. A corner shop on Maple Street, all windows and exposed brick, with an apartment upstairs that the landlord was willing to include in the lease. It needed work, new ovens, fresh paint, proper display cases, but it had good bones and better potential. The location was 40 minutes from our old neighborhood. Far enough that I wouldn't run into David or Natalie. Far enough to feel like a true fresh start. I signed the lease using Margaret's money and my own savings. The first time I stood in that empty space, keys in hand, I cried again. But these were different tears. Not grief. Not anger. Something closer to relief. The next weeks blurred together in a rush of renovation and planning. I hired contractors to update the kitchen, bought equipment, designed a menu that went beyond the simple cakes and cookies I'd been making. I created a brand, Claire's Corner, simple and warm, with a logo that felt like home. I worked 16-hour days, painting walls, assembling shelves, testing recipes in the new ovens. At night, I'd collapse in the small apartment upstairs, too exhausted to think about David or Natalie or the life I'd left behind. The house was sold in December. David and I met one last time at the closing, sitting across a table in a lawyer's office, signing papers that dissolved 17 years in black ink. He looked thinner, tired. He tried to meet my eyes several times, but I kept my gaze on the documents. When it was done, Patricia handed me a check for my portion of the proceeds. Combined with Margaret's gift and what I'd saved over the years, I had enough to not just survive, but thrive. "Claire," David said as I stood to leave, "can we talk?" Just for a minute, I paused. Patricia shot me a warning look, but I nodded. 1 minute, we stepped into the hallway. He shoved his hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I never meant to hurt you." "But you did hurt me, David. Intention doesn't erase impact." "I know. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About the kind of person I am." He finally looked up. "You were right. About all of it. Is this supposed to make me feel better?" "No, I wanted you to know I'm not with Natalie anymore. That caught me off guard." "What?" "It fell apart about a week after I moved in with her. Turned out we didn't have much in common beyond the affair. When it wasn't secret anymore, when it was just real life, we realized we'd destroyed everything for something that wasn't even real. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant, but all I felt was sad. Sad for all of us, for the wreckage we'd made of our lives. I hope you figure out what you're looking for," I said quietly. "I really do. But I can't be part of that journey. I understand." He hesitated, then asked, "Are you okay? I heard you sold the bakery equipment from the house. Are you shutting down?" "No, I'm expanding." His eyebrows rose. "Expanding?" "I'm opening a real bakery, a storefront. Grand opening is next month." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe pride, maybe regret. That's great, Claire. Really. You always deserved more than working from home." "Yes," I agreed. I did. There was nothing left to say. I walked out of that building and didn't look back. Claire's Corner opened on January 15th, a cold Tuesday morning with snow threatening and gray clouds overhead. I'd spent the previous night baking, croissants, scones, cinnamon rolls, 3 different types of bread, and a dozen varieties of cookies and pastries. I hadn't advertised much. Just a sign in the window, some posts on social media, word of mouth. I wasn't sure anyone would come. At 7 a.m., I unlocked the door and turned the sign to open. By 7:30, there was a line. People from the neighborhood, curious about the new place. A young couple with a baby. An elderly man who said he'd been walking past all week, watching me set up, waiting for opening day. A group of women who worked at the hospital down the street and needed somewhere to grab breakfast before their shift. They came, and they stayed, and they came back. Within a month, Claire's Corner had regulars. People who knew my name, who had their usual orders, who lingered over coffee at the small tables by the windows. I hired 2 part-time employees, a college student named Maya who was studying culinary arts, and a retired teacher named Joan who said she missed having somewhere to be. The bakery became more than a business. It became a community, a place where people gathered, where celebrations were marked with custom cakes, where the smell of fresh bread made everyone who entered feel a little more at home. I was working harder than I ever had. But for the first time in years, I was working for myself. Building something that was entirely mine. No one to answer to, no one to second-guess my decisions, no one to tell me to stay small and safe. One afternoon in March, a woman came in just before closing. She ordered a coffee and a slice of lemon cake, then sat by the window watching the rain. When she came to pay, she paused. "I have to ask, are you the Claire from those Facebook posts?" "The divorce?" I tensed. I'd stopped reading social media months ago, stopped caring what people said, but apparently people were still talking. "Yes," I said carefully. She smiled. "I just wanted to say thank you. Reading your story gave me the courage to leave my own bad marriage. I wasn't being cheated on, but I was unhappy, and I kept thinking I should stay because we'd been together so long. But seeing you start over, it helped." My eyes stung with unexpected tears. "Thank you for telling me that. No, thank you for showing what's possible." After she left, I locked the door and stood in my bakery, and thought about Margaret. About her letter, her gift, her final act of kindness to a woman she'd never met. Use it wisely. Use it for yourself, and in doing so, I'd discovered something I hadn't known I'd lost. Myself.